I majored in mathematics in college, and that was fueled by uh, an earlier junior high school experience, and I say junior high school versus middle school, and a mathematics teacher who took an interest in me and one day took me to a math science conference at a university. I won the contest, first place, and truly that single life experience made a difference in my choices. As a student, I knew I was okay in mathematics. I was making A's, but I never saw myself as going into mathematics as a career. That Eureka, that experience, I cannot tell you how it impacted my life. And this one teacher who took the time, I remember it so vividly, as if I were there now. And this was eighth grade, and I took the exam, and then apparently did well enough to go in front of a panel of college professors. And I was so into the mathematics at this point that I lost my nervousness. And I remembered vividly being at the board talking about the math programs. And then I remember sitting in the auditorium at the end, and they called out my name and said, Sue White, first place. I will never, ever forget that experience.
I typically think about, Mrs. Jones, Diana B. Jones at Oxon Hill High School, who is my microbiology teacher. And there were so many others. They were always so encouraging. And, whenever you wanted to do a special project, somebody was there to say, okay, well, these are the things that you're probably going to need. And sure, I'll stay after work to help you. And so I think that those are probably just really good teachers who turned out to also be mentors, because you can be a teacher without being a mentor.
I was a sixth grader in October of 1957 when Sputnik flew. And not long after that, my teacher, Mrs. Kennedy, sat me down and laid out what I was going to do. There was no one in our family, in my parents' generation, who had gone to college. So she told me I was going to go to college. She told me that I was going to study science. She told me that subsequently I would get a PhD and become a professor. I never heard of a PhD. That wasn't language in my household. That I would be a professor and have my own students and do research. And honestly, it never occurred to me, she wasn't specific, but it never occurred to me not to just do that, because after all, if Mrs. Kennedy said you were going to do it, then you just did. And so that was a really important marker, and it stayed with me for a very long time, actually. I was also very fortunate when I was early teen, sort of middle school, early high school age, that in our neighborhood there was a fellow who was a chemical engineer and was, sort of outside neighborhood friends with my parents. And he actually was very, very helpful for me. He would, share journals and talk about things. I think he worked for a paper company, actually, and so I got tours and saw the kinds of things that they did, and got sort of a feel for at least what science was like other than what you read in books. And I think if I had to sort of pick people out, they were probably folks that had an impact on me at a really critical time. That sort of late elementary, middle school, early high school time in there is a time that I think we know now is very, very important.
I was fortunate that my personal connection was my dad. My dad never graduated from college, went to Hampton Institute, now university, for 2 years, dropped out, joined the Navy, but he had an engineering mind. When I was 3 years old, he had me repeat Massachusetts Institute of Technology. When I was 5 years old, he saw in me my interest in trains. And he said, Carl, he said, engineers drive trains. He said, that's what I want to be, an engineer. And as I got older, he expanded the definition. Well, they actually also design and they build trains too. So I'm 7 years old trying to decide whether I was going to drive a train, design a train, or build a train. And then as I got older, he expanded that definition. I actually loved airplanes. And so he was a police officer at one point, and he used to take me to Kennedy Airport and tour the hangars. And I just loved that. And so a lot of what I do is, in a way, a tribute to him. He was my eureka moment, right? And I went to MIT.